I have so many thoughts. I don't even know where to begin. I've been covering politics to one degree or another for about 10 years. And this was really the first time I'd ever seen this whole Graham Platner saga has been so jarring to me. I have found it so jarring. Watching the vast majority of prominent voices in this space run cover for this guy kind of me up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. It kind of me up a little bit. It just seemed like at every increasingly new low of this guy, to watch his most like ardent supporters dig their heels in even more with each new crazy story, with each new glaring red flag, it reminded me a lot of MAGA. Like a lot. And it was just crazy making. I have felt like a crazy person for several months because of this fucking guy. Bueller with $2. Tulsi Gabbard's cult leader made this happen. Maybe. We can't rule it out. I've been with you guys on this Platner journey from the beginning. My journey started with me seeing his first campaign ad and showing you guys on the screen and saying, hey, keep an eye on this guy. This is a really interesting candidate. You don't really see candidates like this guy. There might be something to this guy. And then watching him get more and more popular and build more and more grassroots support online. And then watching his race get so much national attention. Early on feeling like, okay, I don't love a lot of the populist rhetoric, but I recognize that it might be necessary to flip a red seat. The Reddit stuff comes out and I look at the Reddit posts and I tell you guys on the I tell you guys, you know what? I don't really think the Reddit posts are that big of a deal. You know, I don't think this is a big deal. And then like 2 weeks later, it's revealed that the current front runner of the Democratic Party primary in Maine has a literal tattoo. Not a henna tattoo, not a temporary tattoo. He didn't draw it on with a marker, or draw it on his skin with a marker. No, he has a literal permanent tattoo. And of course, my first reaction is like, well, he's got to go. Obviously, right? And I assumed that everybody else was going to be on the same page. Because, and I cannot stress this enough, he has a literal tattoo. I just assumed that would be the end of that. And then to watch like everybody in the space, basically everybody. Am I crazy? I'm not crazy, right? It was like the vast majority of people in left media that ran cover for that to one degree or another. Some of them were like not like, you know, running full defense or whatever. But it wasn't just the tanky sphere. That's the point. It wasn't just the tanky sphere. It was like the normie Dem sphere too. And I watched it play out and I thought, we're really doing this, guys? Folks? Are we really doing this? We're not. So we're not jumping ship at this point. We're gonna hang in there, you know, like just ride it out. The almighty Pat with $2. The tattoo helps him with the anti-Zionists. Oh boy. So the whole alternative media left space decides to dig their heels in and that they're gonna stick with this guy. And I'm just watching all this play out. Like, why are we doing this? Excuse me? Like, why is this necessary? The tattoo was revealed in like September or fucking October or something. There was plenty of time for them to field and find another progressive alternative. if their concern was like, nah, it's got to be him. Otherwise, there's going to be some establishment pick. It's like, well, this is in fucking September or whatever. A girl with a microphone has a good I told you so video she just put up last night. What's her channel name? Girl with a microphone? And then I don't even know what was the next big scandal? I think there was a scandal before the infidelity stuff, but after the tattoo, right? What were like the sequence of events here? No, the Reddit stuff was before the literal tattoo. For Christ's sakes. He abused an ex-partner in Nova. Nova, what is that? I think there was a story before the infidelity stuff and after the stuff. I don't even remember. Listen, sometimes it doesn't feel great to be right. Sometimes it's not a great situation. It's the Abu Ghraib story, Nova, Northern Virginia. Physical, I don't remember. It was like something. There was something in between, but then the New York Times story. Mind you, the whole time I'm like, guys, just as a quick reminder, the guy has a permanent. You know, I just kept repeating myself, like, this is gonna be a problem. This is a problem. And then the infidelity story comes out, and it's revealed that this guy, as recently as, and I'm not making this up, as recently as last year, 1 year ago, was sexting between a half dozen and a dozen women right after he got married. 1 year ago, okay? And it's also revealed during that reporting that he had a Kik account. A KIK account, which apparently is very popular amongst child. And there's even a profile picture, which is framed so his head is not in the frame, and his phone is coincidentally perfectly positioned. It's a bathroom selfie, perfectly positioned to hide his permanent, literal tattoo. And I'm looking around like, okay, surely this is it, right? Surely this is when the people like flee, right? Like, this is astonishingly poor judgment and impulsive behavior that is entirely unbecoming of a prospective senator. And then people like the cope that I was seeing was like, oh, so his big crime is that he a lot, you know, like, oh, he's a horn dog. Like, you're missing the point. It's about like character, judgment, reliability, like trustworthiness. All these things matter when you're selecting a Senate candidate. And people just dug their heels in even more. And then the story comes out with a woman alleging, let's call it what it is. That's what it is. Her story was a story of, and I watch in abject horror as people that have occupied progressive online spaces for like 10 years. I watch in horror as they straight up tell people you can dismiss this person's allegations because they have the wrong politics. You can just dismiss these allegations because the accuser is a Republican. What? Since when was that the standard? What? Who'd she vote for again? Who'd she work for again? Oh no, yeah, this is an obvious op. When did that become like a clause in the progressive sort of like code of conduct when it comes to evaluating allegations? And a lot of those same people right now, and I'm not going to name any names, Emma Vigeland, a lot of those same people now. I found a tweet last night that is amazing. An amazing tweet. Can we just marvel at it for a second? I mean, just look at it. Sear it into your brains, you know? Like, we need to create an NFT and put it in an NFT museum and just preserve it for posterity so that future generations can know how just crazy the 2020s were. there's so many layers to this tweet, you know? First of all, he says, Emma Vigeland, who was one of the first big name progressives to speak out regarding Platner today. Are you actually serious with this? Like, the author of the article is crediting her for jumping ship after allegations come out from a woman whose politics she can't attack. A woman with the right politics makes an allegation. She abandoned ship because she can't dismiss this woman's allegations. And the author of this article is like, who was one of the first big name progressives to speak out. It's just unbelievable to me. She said, it is incumbent upon all of us on the left to treat these allegations with the seriousness that requires and take the reporting seriously. Where the was this energy like a month ago when that other story came out? And just like the like I actually want to vomit. She posted this at 3:30 yesterday.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to jump on here to address the serious, credible allegations against Graham Platner. This story is devastating. I believe the victim here. I think that Graham should drop out of the race. He has betrayed many, many supporters by not being forthright about this. I would include myself in that. I believed his campaign when they said that
I didn't see it coming, you know, it was such a curveball. There was, you know, it would have been easier if there were signs, you know, like Super Spud with the Tier 1 membership. NPR's Platner post has people screaming about APAC. I didn't even see what post you're talking about.
There was nothing new coming out, and it looks like an awful, awful accusation, and a credible one has come out. Now, this movement has never been about...
It's so gross. This one is actually credible. This story is actually credible. The other one, not credible. Because the woman was a Republican. Just like any kind of like progressive bona fides that you claim to have had, you just tossed all of that away. The second you... Jamie, can we pull up the video of her like dismissing the allegations? Graham Platner's smear campaign backfires 4 weeks ago.
Wine mom radicalization, I think, that we're talking about here.
Tattoo. How do you kind of...
Somebody said that they talked to somebody who had seen one of those or wore one of those, and it was silver, and it didn't even occur to him that it was the same thing. I think people are making as much of it as they can because they don't have a lot of substance around anything else. Yep. And if they did, we'd hear about it, believe me. They are trolling for dirt.
What if he has like a Israeli flag tattoo or something? Would that be a deal breaker?
I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose my mind. Just one of the most amazing clips I've ever seen in my life. Truly, that's like top 50. All elite memes with $10. This is exactly why I say we should be doing zero cover for these people. They have an entire media apparatus ready to run defense for them. Libs should only signal boost. This is an L for the fringe left.
That would show that he was being inconsistent. And he's been very consistent about that. Straight across the board.
That's about his ideology. That's about what he's promising. That's what Maine voters care about. The inconsistency would be the problem. And that's what's the difference is between when you hear like, oh, well, would you be saying this about Pete Hegseth? This is consistent with Hegseth's ideology. His Crusaders tattoo is consistent with the reports of him yelling kill all Muslims and his right-wing ideology that he's implemented as the Secretary of Defense. They want, I think right now, to create this perception that it's scandal after scandal and that to create this kind of force and this momentum to push Platner out of...
They want to establish a narrative that it's just bad stories, you know. It's the way they defended him. It's the way they defended him, you guys. It was so similar to MAGA. They victimized him. They made him a victim at every step of the way with every new story that came out, as the whole situation just got progressively worse and worse and worse and indefensible. They were only galvanized. It only galvanized them. Do you guys realize this? They used the same logic as Trump supporters in 2016. Well, the fact that he's being attacked so much, that tells me that he's onto something. You know, the only reason these stories are coming out is because he opposes Israel and the establishment. They just dug their heels in further every time. And it was just so similar to MAGA. It's just unbelievable. It's just really unbelievable.
Of the race, and just have people say, oh, it's too much. But the opposite appears to be happening. I know it's really too early to tell. Rural states like this, Maine voters in particular, have a real sensitivity to outsiders telling them what to do, one. And two, they value independence more than other parts of the country. That's why Bernie Sanders has had so much success in the neighboring state of Vermont. They value independence over partisanship. All of these attacks from what like people are understanding to be the establishment, I think could really backfire on them. And a reminder that it's not just, I think ideologically, it's Zionists that are terrified of Platner, but the entire infrastructure.
What'd I tell you? What did I tell you?
Structure of the Democratic consultant class is also in opposition.
Like, you're a journalist, right? Let's just imagine you're a journalist, okay? And it's your job to look into politicians. That's your beat. You know, you work for a local paper, or you work for a magazine, and they got you on the politics beat. It is your literal job. Nay, it is your essential function within a liberal democracy with a free press to scrutinize politicians. That is your job. You are supposed to do that. And so these journalists do their job, look into this guy, find about 1 billion skeletons in his closet, and they start writing articles about these skeletons. And his most ardent defenders call him a victim, suggest or explicitly say that he's being unfairly targeted because a journalist like ran down a story and wrote an article about him scrutinizing his past. That is their job. That is the job of the media. It is essential that we have a free media that does these kinds of things. And they victimized him over that. They said he was being targeted. It is ridiculous, you guys. Nostalgia Gaming with $2. God, I fell for it. What's wrong with me? This. Here's the thing. This is a really good learning experience for you. And I'm not, this is going to sound condescending. It is what it is, but I'm an old man. I do have some pearls of wisdom. If you learn anything from this experience, don't get like, here's some unsolicited advice. Don't get personally attached to politicians. Treat them like chess pieces. Truly. Just treat them like chess pieces, okay? You like your queen, but if the position calls for you to sacrifice the queen, do it without hesitation. Go for the winning position. Just treat them like tools, like instruments. Don't project your hopes onto these people. They are tools. They are dispensable tools. Like you would have to have, I'm not universally opposed to developing a fondness for politicians. If you have a local politician who, you know, is very passionate about your community and did a lot of really good, it's fine to like, you know, admire people in that kind of way. But like, especially if it's just like some guy that nobody knew a year ago, just go into these things with like a healthy amount of skepticism. You know, don't automatically assume that people who speak a particular kind of political language. I think Platner, like, I get it. I do. I'm not mad at you guys. If there's anybody in chat that liked him, you know, wanted to believe in him, I'm not frustrated with you guys. I get it. I understand it. Platner got up there and, similar to Trump, he spoke about politics in a language that basically very few people speak that way publicly about their politics and about the state of things. And I understand like why that would excite people and make them feel hopeful. You know, like I get that. I do. I really do. Hutch, I was also a Platner fan. I guess for me, I was tired of seeing the GOP getting away with stuff and the Democrats never doing so. Listen, I'm gonna let that slide just for today. Just don't. It's just not a good. I don't know. I'm turning 43 in a couple of weeks. I have experienced a lot of political cycles. I have seen a lot of politicians come and go. I got a lot more excited about politicians when I was younger, and I think I'm just jaded now because I have seen people come and go, and I've seen, to be clear, Platner is pretty unique in the kind of controversies that he was embroiled in. He was pretty exceptional in that regard. I just want to go over some of these receipts today because they don't let them gaslight you, okay? Don't let the people that were insisting that Platner had to be the guy and that, everybody who was concerned about these stories was buying into centrist smears. Don't let them forget. Don't let them do this about face. Like we all don't remember their rhetoric for the last several months. Don't let them get away with it, these assholes.
To a campaign like this because of how he runs. Because if this is the standard, then the parasitic middlemen who are the Democratic consultant class that take these big commissions on media buys and digital ads that have had very little success, specifically in unseating Susan Collins, but even in broadly across the country, they would be rendered moot. And that's what we need to do because they are parasitic and taking away all of the energy from the Democratic grassroots. But they are terrified about that. So you have consultants going on television slamming Platner over and over again. They're trying it with Abdul al-Sayed, but he's such a Boy Scout that you can't find anything. But this manner of
he's
campaign,
unconventional.
Yeah, I mean, and whoa, did he actually do his residency? Like, the manner of campaigning is threatening to the Democratic Party infrastructure, and then overall, of course, the politics of Platner is threatening to the Zionists that are running a coordinated smear campaign against him. Make no mistake about it.
Bro.
Why?
Can we call that anti-Semitism? I feel like it's getting pretty close, like we're getting pretty close to Zog territory there. It's very conspiratorial. Like anti-Semites are all like very conspiratorial and brain rotted. It always comes back to them in some kind of way, like the Zionists are smearing him. Really? Are you serious right now? Das Vidania with $5. Kind of wild to recall that there were articles about how Platner could be a presidential nominee just a few weeks ago. No. I stand by that. Now that was a big if. If Graham Platner weathered the storm and this scandal comes out and it doesn't affect his popularity and he goes on to beat Susan Collins by 10 points. The same people that recruited him to run for Senate would have told him, you got to run for president, bro. You got to do it. And I genuinely think in that universe he could have had a shot. But this story was just too big for him, I think. The climate right now is so bad for Republicans that just a generic Democrat polls higher than Susan Collins. And so the idea that we couldn't have replaced Platner at any point with a Democrat who could have similarly beat Collins is just nonsense. It's nonsense. We could have replaced this guy as soon as the tattoo came out and could have easily found another Democrat to replace this guy. The gaslighting, this is what has pissed me off the whole time. They have insisted that he has to be the guy. It has to be him. And I think in their minds, the urgency of this moment clouded their judgment. Because make no mistake about it, guys. What's going on is the Emma Vigelands of the world, the entire left alternative media space, they smell blood in the water right now. They are circling the wagons. They see Democratic Party approval rating at a historic low. They see Donald Trump having a historically unpopular second term. And so they feel in this moment they have never had a better moment than right now to elevate their preferred politicians that push a populist, anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, anti-establishment message, vision, platform. So their urgency levels are through the roof, and it totally clouded their judgment. about this guy. Because the urgency is so high, because the opportunity is so unique in this moment, that I think was probably a big part of the reason why they dug their heels in so much about this guy. Isn't circling the wagons making a defensive move? I'm not going to lie to you. I don't understand that phrase. I just said it and it felt right, just to be honest with you. But they felt like in this moment they had to strike while the iron was hot. I know what that phrase means. And in that urgency, in their urgency, they just abandoned all reason. All reason and logic just went out the window because of the way that he was immediately elevated to the status of like a populist icon. As these stories started to come out and more about his past was revealed, put yourself in his shoes for a second. He had a lot of incentive to stay in the race, despite the mountain of like the avalanche of stories that were dropping. Because if he drops out, then he's just known kind of like in his community and in that state as the creepy guy who cheated on his wife 12 times and had a kick account and tattoo and is a failed Senate candidate, you know? So he had so much incentive for his own kind of status, his own reputation within his community. If he could have weathered this story and any future stories and stayed in the race and still won and still beat Collins, then he'd just be a part of the team and people would talk about him a lot less. You know, he would just kind of fade into the background. But now he's just this guy that, you know, and especially if Collins wins in November, now he's the guy who like up a winnable Senate race on top of like having all these bad stories about him drop. He had this incentive to try to stick it through and I think that got in the way of like making the selfless decision. I just want to remind people sort of like what the rhetoric sounded like a month ago when the New York Times story dropped.
Didn't see this tweet from Lindsay Fiffield saying that she seems very.
That's the woman who accused him of, by the way. I mean, just right there, the way they speak about her, the tone they use, the snide comments, her? You mean that Republican operative?
Saying that she seems very upset about the Times cover. She supposedly gave them sources that could corroborate her story, even though they couldn't corroborate it. Do people think like you maybe pulled this up? This tweet's worth running. I know I wasn't planning to do this, but it just popped up in my feed in between the fun half. It's sort of fascinating.
Is this the one that begins, "I bucked all advice"?
Yes. Let's just watch this. And I mean, I'm sorry. I'm fascinated by this, both because, I mean, I think everybody understands stakes here, right? Like,
it is just so gross. How did they not? Here's the thing. Okay, listen, I can appreciate risk takers, okay? I'm a bit of a gambler myself. I'm a bit of a degenerate gambler myself, but holy shit, what a gamble to go all in for Platner the way that these people did, to the extent that they were impugning the character of accusers because of their politics. That was such an insane gamble based on everything that came out about Platner. How did you not come up with like a profile in your mind? How did you not anticipate that something far worse could very plausibly come out and thus make these kind of old videos look really bad in hindsight? That's such an insane gamble to me. You really didn't think that like it could get so much worse based on everything that came out? And if you guys like, there was a cadence to the stories that came out about him. You know, they kept getting worse. The stories just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Which kind of makes sense. Because, and I'm not a journalist, but I'm just going to assume this. Maybe I'm wrong. I assume for the worst stories, you need more investigation. You need more time. You need more corroboration. because they don't want to put out like a really negative story and then get it wrong and then be subject to like a defamation suit or something like that. And so it kind of makes sense that like the stories that came out just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And so it's like, once we got past the allegations a month ago, it's like, well, where can, you know, like, where can it go from here? You know, if it's only getting worse from here, it's like, okay, well, did he someone? Did he murder someone? It's like like it can only be like those things beyond a certain point.
Maine there is virtually no way to contemplate taking back the Senate without winning Maine.
Captain Flavortown. Listen, buddy, did you just say the New York Times article was not corroborated, you ape? Did you really just say that? Did you really say that? Hang on a minute. I have let your snarky ass sassy pants, I have let you get away with so much for way too long, buddy. Way too long. I have allowed this to happen in my own chat for way too long. As soon as I Google how to time somebody out for a week, because I already forgot, you're in big trouble, buddy.
It's literally possible, but it's highly unlikely because the states that you'd have to win are just, you know, further out of reach. And I'm also
there was corroboration in the New York Times article, by the way.
Fascinated by the way this story.
It was like similar corroboration. It was like similar corroboration because Lindsay Fifield told people like years in the past, as far as I recall from the reporting, she told people about this like bad experience. I don't know if she went into like every detail, but she told people about like having like really bad experience with Platner. And then those people were interviewed. Like they couldn't, but that's like, that is so common that, oh, you don't have a witness. It wasn't like recorded. Maybe you were ashamed when it happened. You didn't talk about it with people. Like this is like a very normal kind of thing.
Story has developed like, who is doing this? Because the timing of
it's
this
the Zionists,
is
Sam.
Strange.
It's the Zionists.
And suggests that it's not just a question of Republicans, because if the Republicans had this stuff, they would drop it, you know, in October. But why? Or it could be about Republicans taking a different tack and saying, we need to get him out of the race. As opposed to try and beat him, because we may not be able to beat him. The best thing is for us to get him out of the race.
Yeah.
And now is the most opportune time to do that. But regardless, so let's put up this tweet from Lindsay Fifield. She is the only person to suggest any type of physicality. And again, she wouldn't have called it like, but any type of physicality from Platner. And she also suggests.
She wouldn't call it. I don't think that's true. When did she say that? When did Lindsay Fifield say, I'm not saying it's use? I don't think she said that.
That he knew what his tattoo was. So I'm sorry, put this back up. I bucked all advice from my friends. Oh, wait a second.
There it is.
From my friends and resisted my conservative bias and decided to fully trust the Times journalist. I mean, she couldn't even like get through this. She's such like an influencer that she's already in the parentheses are there to address her audience, which is conservatives going like, how could you trust the Times?
And by the way, she's already spoken to the media now that we know, confirmed by her old podcast host and friend, Bethany Mandel, about the tattoo. She
confirms it in this thread too.
Okay.
And so she had already
confirmed by another Republican. Pretty convenient, guys. This smells like a Zionist smear to me.
Spoken out, but she's talking about like the deal that she made with the Times.
Right.
As they left my home and asked I not talk to other outlets, and I insisted then and repeatedly the following weeks I would keep my word and only share this story with them. Now listen, that right there, that is a weird thing for those. I want to be clear on this. What people don't understand, when you deal with the press, they have a code that they just sort of presume that you know, and lay people don't know the code. which is like, this I want to say on background, this I want to say on the record, et cetera, et cetera. Now, a woman like her, she will know because she's worked in this field. The only reason why you would make that promise to the Times is if you wanted the story in the Times. She is under no obligation to say to the Times, oh yeah, I'm only going to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to the Washington Post. I'm not going to talk to the Washington Examiner. I'm going to only talk to you. And the reason why she does that.
So they drum up this whole ass conspiracy. When does Emma start talking? Emma, as I recall, went pretty hard. I could be wrong about that.
Did work on behalf of Dark Money Group.
A woman who'd work in right-wing circles. Fascinating.
I mean, she works at a conservative dark money group, Independent Women's Forum, that did work on behalf for Susan Collins to help craft her response to the backlash she was going to get for voting for Kavanaugh despite the allegations. So,
I mean, this logic violates every progressive tenet that they have supposedly espoused for years. Can we just stop and marinate on this logic for a minute? According to her own standard, first of all, we obviously 1000% know that people are victims of, or regardless of their politics, which is to say, Republican women experience, have been abused, they've been victims of, but according to Emma Vigeland's standards, those women can just be ignored. If they have conservative politics, you can just ignore them immediately. It doesn't matter what was in the reporting. You can just say it's a smear. You can just say, well, we can just ignore that, which is just, I don't know. I don't remember that being a part of like the Me Too stuff. I could be wrong. It's been a few years. My recollection of Me Too was it was an all-encompassing movement to call attention to issues and culturally accepted attitudes that had been going on for too long and had caused like real harm to people regardless of their political affiliation. But apparently I was wrong about that. I guess I didn't understand back in the Me Too era that this stuff doesn't apply to Republican women. You can just ignore them. Alt Red Dragon with 72 months. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hang on. Curly with $5. Red flags? What red flags? I didn't even see the dude's tattoo. When misconduct came out initially, we didn't take them seriously. There was no way to see this coming. You owe Mike $1 million. Oh my goodness. Alt Red Dragon, thanks so much for 72 months. I appreciate it.
forgive me.
Anyways, we don't need to, well, hang on.
Me for not necessarily buying her pearl clutching about victims, and coincidentally the group that she currently works for is a fellow at was that group that I'm speaking about, and she was involved in activism on behalf of Kavanaugh prior to this. It just feels like there's a lot of threads that are coming together that seem less like coincidences and more like a narrative.
So it's the Zionists, it's the Republican operatives, and it's the Democratic establishment, and I assume Republicans. It's like all four people are unfairly targeting Graham Platner because he represents such a threat to the status quo.
Yeah, we could pull up her piece where she talked.
Anyways, I found that at the time to be disgusting. I still think it's disgusting. Just a very, very poorly aged clip. And I just like, we cannot let these people. And to be clear, I'm not telling you guys to harass people. Don't brigade her posts, these kinds of things. But don't let these people forget how much they gaslit us for months about this guy.
What I mean by that is that, I think there's a lot of situationships. I think people are dating multiple people at the same time, whether that's known or not.
This is, what's her first name? I think her last name is Rassicot. I don't know how to pronounce that. This is the woman who made the recent allegation, the one that came out yesterday?
Known by the people involved. So it was just a very common practice is what I viewed it as.
And kind of casual.
Yeah, very casual.
And when did you meet him and how did you meet him?
Met him on Bumble actually in 2019. And I had known who he was. He grew up in the next town over. We had like a mutual family friend, so I always knew of his existence, but that was when we actually met.
And what'd you think of him?
At first I thought he was great. You know, he's very well spoken, he's intelligent. I thought a lot of good things. We had a great first date. It went and flowed really well.
He has described himself as self-medicating with alcohol.
Yeah.
He has described himself that way.
Yeah.
So I would think maybe that would have reared its head.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's something that I think a lot of people are desensitized to in general, heavy drinking, and especially out of the relationship that I had just come out of. So it wasn't anything abnormal to me. I remember we were out one night and he was drinking, and that's when he told me that he has PTSD.
When the New York Times story came out, you were in it, but you didn't go as far in that story as you are today.
Yeah.
Why not?
I didn't want to. I didn't want to have to violate this huge level of privacy to my own life to be able to infer that this person is not honest and trustworthy. I felt really protective of my own privacy throughout this whole process. And it got to a point where my privacy was no longer going to happen. And that was when I kind of just made the decision that, like, I'm going to say my piece and get it out there. I had tried to give the impression that something, you know, worse happened. And that.
Hutch, is this the thing you were assuming was going to drop, or is this not new? I didn't stay up to date completely on Platner. This is new. The allegations are new. Those allegations dropped yesterday. This woman was a part of the New York Times story, but she was not the focus of the story. The New York Times story from a month ago, I think, spoke with 3 ex-girlfriends of Graham Platner. 2 of them alleged, like, you know, really toxic, bad behavior, infidelity, but didn't allege any kind of physical or she was one of those 2 that in the article didn't make the same kind of allegations. And then there was Lindsay Fifield, who was basically the focus of that interview. She was the one who alleged, but she is coming out today, and or she came out yesterday, and is now speaking up about a different thing.
That's when it was like, I refused to comment further.
You definitely alluded to
Let's see it, Das Vidania.
Yeah.
Sure.
You never saw him again afterwards.
Yeah.
But just to underline the point, you're not coming forward because you have any political motivation.
No, not at all. That was actually one of the huge reasons that I didn't come forward and still struggled. Like, that was a huge moral conflict to feel like.
Because you'd like a Democrat to be in the Senate.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the things that he speaks about. They're important. They're important to people. I'm one of those people.
But at the end of the day, you feel he's not being honest.
He's not being honest, no.
And we should note, this is 2021 we're talking about. It's only 5 years ago. Tell me about that. When was it?
It was at the end of 2021. I remember it being shortly after I moved back into my winter home, because that is where it happened. And it was a night where him and I were texting back and forth, and he had taken something that I said as an invitation. And that's not how I meant it, and I quickly clarified. And he sent a message back indicating that he would come over, and I said, no, don't come over. Like, I'm not in the mood, don't come over. And I was more stern with that message. And then I didn't hear back from him. So I thought that that meant he got the message or gave up on it or whatnot. And so like half an hour later, I heard a noise outside my door, and then he came in. He just came into my house. It was unlocked. I live in an area where you don't usually have to lock your doors. I do now.
Did you drop it, Das Vidania? I'm looking at React suggestions, and I don't. Oh, did you put it in requested links? Daybook.com. What is this? Research director urgently hiring. Job description: research director. Location: Maine. Salary $7,000 to $11,000 per month based on experience. Start date immediate. Graham Platner for U.S. Senate is looking for an experienced research director to lead our efforts. This was posted today. As research director, you will develop and execute a comprehensive research and vetting strategy to ensure the campaign has the strategic intelligence needed to take on the billion. What am I reading right now? Is this the real thing? He dropped out, right? He officially dropped out yesterday, didn't he? Is this a real job listing? What's happening right now? He hasn't dropped out yet? Excuse me? Wait, what? I read reporting, or there was some reporting last night when we were doing the podcast that it was the case that he was going to drop out. It is real. I'm assuming they had this schedule posted. So this is a real, what do we even call these? Job description for Graham Platner for U.S. Senate. We're looking for a research director who will develop and execute a comprehensive research and vetting strategy to ensure the campaign has the strategic intelligence needed to take on billionaire-backed politicians. The ideal candidate will have experience conducting opposition and self-research for a federal campaign, be highly organized, and bring a sharp, analytical, and rapid response approach to political strategy. Let's make history together. Graham for Maine is an equal opportunity employer. Interesting. Okay. He said he wouldn't drop out until a replacement is found and that the replacement needs to share his goals. I believe it was stated in the video that he put out. You know what? I didn't even watch this video.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of behavior is categorically false. Over the last 10 months, I have been deeply humbled by the faith Mainers have put in me. You have welcomed me into your homes, into your places of work, into your restaurants, into your houses of worship. You have shown that a different kind of politics, one that puts the interests of people over corporations, is not just possible, but is inevitable. This movement we have built, the largest volunteer base in the history of Maine politics, the hundreds of thousands of grassroots donors, and the supporters across the ideological spectrum, we were united in a love of Maine, a belief that our politics must change, and a focus on defeating Susan Collins.
This selfish con man, you guys, what a selfish piece of shit with our, like, seriously, with our chances of flipping the Senate. He knew more shit was going to come out. He knew, this guy. And he was just way too pot committed, but obviously he knew that more stuff was going to come out at some point. Didn't you say you were going to vote for him anyways? I did. Yes. I don't understand. Listen, I don't know how else to explain to people that the Republican controlled Senate hurts a lot of people. I would vote for an actual murderer to replace Susan Collins if it meant a Senate majority for the Democrats. If it meant taking that power away from Republicans. I would vote for an actual convicted murderer if that's what it meant.
So, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins. Those were the goals when we launched this campaign, and they remain my goals today. On June 9th, 154,058 Mainers, the most in primary history, voted to reject a broken politics beholden to Washington and the donor class. They voted for hope, for change, to take back our economy, to take back our power, and to take back our Senate seat. Throughout it all, you never turned your back on me, and I will not turn my back on you now. Every one of you.
And then everybody, except for Jank, turned their back on him. The trade was $5. If this was an establishment Dem, it wouldn't have mattered. We would have disavowed him. It's so whack that we are the only people with values. I mean, Swalwell, he was gone in like less than 24 hours, right? And Stephen King, true, and Stephen King. Patriarch with the tier 2 membership. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Who deserves to see that vision come to fruition and see Susan Collins defeated. And we will use every tool at our disposal to do so. As Maine goes, so goes the nation. As always, thank you.
What is this? Another relevant clip. Play at 3:10. Play at 3:10. Okay. Oh, we watched this interview. This silly interview.
Asked straight up because there have already been quite a few controversies, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the GOP is going to dig up everything and more that they can.
Yeah, and probably lie at some point. I mean,
is there something new you want to get ahead of?
No, I mean, like I've lived my life. I've been there for the whole thing, and because of that, like I mean, I know what I've been through. I know what my behavior has been. I know all of it, and there's a reason that even after however many months that was, October, when they dropped the opposition research stuff on us. And the whole time there was always this like, oh, there's more coming. I'm always like, I don't know like what this more is going to be.
Yikes. Yikes. That is a very, very poorly aged clip.
And
these are all your social media posts, etc., which again we'll talk about in a minute.
But there was always this like, oh no, they're going to dig up everything in your life, and it's everything you've ever done. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get that, but like I've been through my life, and like I'm certainly an imperfect person, and I certainly went through my struggles, and I mean, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I also know for a fact that like I've never been close to money. I've never been close to power. I've never I don't think anything I've ever done has been outside of the realm of like what people do when they struggle, when they suffer, that kind of stuff. And
oh God, another this clip. I mean, talk about poorly aged clips.
And at this point, you hadn't vetted Graham Platner. You hadn't done a full scrub of who he is. How did you go about vetting him? And why did you?
We paid.
Just end the clip right there. I mean, that's just an amazing clip right there.
A nice firm, a whole chunk of money, and got some stuff back. Some of what you've seen on the news we got back. Other stuff we didn't.
Did the vetting process turn up the tattoo that became so controversial?
No.
The Reddit posts, did that turn up in the vetting process?
The firm sent us a thing, and it had some of the posts, but it didn't have all of them.
And what did you think about that?
Just as a reminder, guys, the Reddit was linked to a public email account. You do not need to pay a firm thousands of dollars to vet a candidate in order to find an old Reddit account that is linked to the candidate's public email.
How did you think your way through the fact that he had posted these things on social media?
I said none of this will or should stop him from becoming a U.S. Senator.
And what was your thinking there?
Agree. I think if what the voters wanted were people who were grown in vats and had never done or said anything that they might regret their entire lives, we'd have a very different country. Part of our thesis here is that people do not want their candidates grown in vats. They want people who are real human beings, and they want people who do not look and sound like the vat-grown people who've been leading this country off a cliff for the last century. And that was Graham.
Just days after this interview, more details about Platner's past emerged.
Oh my God, you guys. He was running as a chainsaw, not just against Trump and MAGA, but against like Democrats,
I will never forgive Susan Collins for her vote for Brett Kavanaugh, which resulted in the overturning of Wade. But I will be honest, I also will never forgive establishment Democrats for many years never taking the opportunity to codify reproductive rights in federal law.
He's just such an ignorant slut. You know what I mean? This was Kyle Kulinski about 4 months ago. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I just need people to understand just how hard people like Kyle Kulinski went. I mean, Kulinski went nuclear, you guys. nuclear. Of all the people that ran defense for Platner, I think Kyle Kulinski and Jank kind of stand above everybody else with just like how like the insane defense they ran and the sheer volume of smoke they had for people who voiced their concerns about Platner. He went nuclear for several months. I was about to show you guys the only tweet, the only post from him referencing the recent Graham Platner controversy is this. But he hasn't even mentioned it on his feed. And on Twitter, the only reference to it is him reposting Crystal Ball, calling attention to Kevin McCarthy talking about the Platner allegations. You know, like Republicans just obviously have no leg to stand on when it comes to allegations. They can just pipe them down. Where, you know, the adults will speak amongst ourselves. We do not value your input. Yeah, he very famously said that Platner could have sexted his own mom and he wouldn't have given a. But he has since removed this repost. I don't see it on his feed anymore. Am I crazy? Nope, it's still there. Never mind. This is it. That's it. This is after months, you guys. Months. Several months. You can go through his feed. You can search for the word Platner. You can see how hard this guy was going on everybody who came out and was like, this guy's a problem. This guy Platner is a problem. And he will never apologize for that. He will never say that he was wrong. He will never say that he regrets his behavior. He will never take any accountability for that stuff. This was him a month ago.
All right, y'all, let me walk you through the absolute worst smear campaign of all time and how it backfired spectacularly in a way that may be the biggest failure of a hit job of all time, quite literally, okay?
Wait a second. He did post a video 15 hours ago. I didn't even see this. 15 hours ago would have been, quick math, 4:30 last night. I didn't see this.
All right, y'all, got some major breaking news here that dropped earlier today. So Politico is reporting that Graham Platner was accused of... But if you actually read the article, the headline says, if you actually read the article, it's very clear that the allegation is not... Okay?
Is Kyle dumb? Is Kyle an actual moron? It's not... It's... Excuse me? Buddy. What do you... Like, does he genuinely not know that counts as... What the f...
There's a few things about this that are extra concerning. The previous allegations were easy to dismiss because it was a literal Heritage Foundation Republican insider who was making the allegations. Also, the allegations were effectively, he's a bad boyfriend. This is not that. This is...
No. Those were not the allegations. He was a bad boyfriend. Guys, what the hell? What the actual... you guys.
Much more extreme allegation is point number one. Point number two is she does have some corroborating evidence, and it's also, if we're being serious here, a Democrat who's making the allegation. In fact, she was hesitant to come forward because she says, I agree with Graham's politics, and I was caught between, like, what do I do here?
We can believe this one, guys. She's a Democrat, okay? So we can't sweep this one under the rug.
Come forward. Do I stay quiet because I agree with his politics? And Graham dropped an emergency video earlier today. Take a look at that.
As always.
So needless to say, very serious allegations, and there's evidence this time as well that there wasn't previously. And I honestly think he's going to drop out. I think he's almost certainly going to drop out. He's going to throw his weight behind whoever takes his place. There's some conversations about who that'll be, which I'll get to in a second. But
do you guys think that Kyle Kulinski has a carefully curated Limp Bizkit playlist on Spotify? Only the hits. None of that filler stuff, you know?
Let me also just say real quick, if you're a Republican, I am not remotely interested.
Although I'll tell you what, listen, you know what I did this weekend, guys? You know what I did? We took a little trip to this little beautiful spot near San Diego. We stayed in a yurt. It was lovely. But on our way to the Airbnb, I put on Limp Bizkit. I put on not Limp Bizkit, Jesus Christ. Linkin Park. I put on the Linkin Park greatest hits playlist on Spotify and just rocked out I just tapped into my early 2000s angst. They had some bangers, you guys. And Linkin Park was like one of those bands, definitely in the 2000s, where I was like, Linkin Park, that pop, ridiculous pop bullshit, that commercial pop bullshit. Give me a break. And I 1000% listened to them secretly in my car. You know, I was careful to not rock out like too hard so people couldn't hear me. But I'd be in my car like, I can't feel the way I did before. Don't turn your back on me. I want back. And do you know what? The new singer, the woman, she's got some pipes. Listen to their new album. She has some pipes. Holy shit. She's actually pretty good. I'm just saying, it was just 2 hours of Linkin Park, and it's just, I'm at an age now where I don't give a shit. I don't care, you know? Don't give a, I like what I like, and I don't care anymore. I don't care about, like, you know, like, pop commercial bullshit. I like what I like, and I just roll with it. Linkin Park had some bangers. They did. Undeniable. I'm just saying.
Interested in your Platner take, wasn't previously. And I honestly think he's going to drop out. I think he's almost certainly going to drop out. He's going to throw his weight behind whoever takes his place. There's some conversations about who that'll be, which I'll get to in a second. But let me also just say real quick, if you're a Republican, I am not remotely interested in your Platner take. Because you have nominated a guy 3 times who was accused of much worse and much more than Graham Platner. I simply don't want to hear it. There's a literal Wikipedia page dedicated to all of the allegations made against Donald J. Trump.
But Kyle, how did you not torch your own credibility with the insane defense that you've been running for this guy for months now? 1 minute after he says, literally just comes out and says, you can dismiss the allegations from the other woman because she's a Republican. He actually just came out and said it. Guy Denuz with $5. I'm noticing a pattern of, if you're a Republican, you shouldn't say shit. No, Kyle, address the liberals that were telling you he was a minefield. Grassroots Hegemon with $5. Every day of his life, Kyle's mouth and his hair wake up and resume their decade-long twilight struggle to humiliate him. He's been at it for longer than a decade. I think Kyle's been making videos for like 20 years.
There's nearly 30 different sexual harassment and allegations made against Donald J. Trump. Every Republican knows that. No Republican cares. Okay? So I'm just simply not interested in you pretending like you have a conscience now and you're moral now when you're not remotely any of those things. So all of you go to shut the Bill, sincerely from the bottom of my heart. This is an internal issue between liberals and leftists and Democrats. Okay?
Also, and I didn't even know this, I learned that Catalyst is a Linkin Park song. I didn't even know that. You guys know that song? It's like, it's so good. It's like an anthem. The rising sun and the motherfucking dinner and the engine is one and the can't be outdone, it can't be outdone. I remember that song from Mazzarini's COD montage. I didn't know that was a Linkin Park song. It's so good.
Way more than Graham has been. Let's be serious about that. I'm not trying to downplay what Graham is being accused of here, but let's be serious. You don't get to pretend like you have a conscience and pretend.
Neera Tanden, you guys, is so based. She is in the trenches fighting the same lunatics that I've been fighting with for the last, I don't even know how many years. She's in there fighting the good fight, okay? She's one of the strongest soldiers speaking up about these lunatics. I'm a big Neera Tanden supporter. This guy is just one of the most prolific click chasers on the internet, man. He just kind of goes wherever the trends go. Trib with $5. Did I get you? He says Republicans voted for Trump, but leftists like him said Kamala and Trump are basically the same. Dems and MAGA are basically the same. There's nuance with Kyle, so Kyle didn't quite do that with Kamala. Kyle was tactical in 2024. So he spoke positively about Kamala after she took over. Generally, he had a positive tone about Kamala, but he never took the step of actually saying, I'm going to vote for her and here's why I think you should. And I think he did that because the online left audience had become so radicalized post October 7th against the Biden administration. He knew that if he would have come out and said that, he probably would have lost a decent amount of people in his audience. He made a video. There was something, it was called like the case against Donald Trump. And that was very deliberate. It was safer for Kyle to make a negative case against Donald Trump. It was safe for him to do that. It would not have been safe for him if he came out and actually gave an affirmative set of reasons for why it would be a good idea to vote for Kamala Harris. And at the end of the video for Donald Trump, he says, I was going to make a video talking about all the things I like about Kamala's campaign, but I ran out of time. You ran out of time? What does that mean? It's like 1 p.m. What are you talking about? Just make another video or record for another 30 minutes. You ran out of time. You're a YouTuber. What does that even mean? Anyways, some of you guys remember what I'm about to show you.
You know, you have talked about self-medicating with alcohol and being pretty messed up when you got back from the service and trying to figure out.
Wait, no, this isn't even the, hang on. Graham Platner on MS Now. Okay. You know what? I can't find it. Oh, wait, no, wait, hold on. Clarifying the timeline. This is it. Never mind.
What you're doing and doing things maybe you wouldn't stand by now and saying things you wouldn't stand by. But this is 2023. And so there's a difference in the time. And I think the first question is like, when did this stop? If it stopped, if there was stuff that you're not proud of that you worked out with your wife and you don't want to talk about the details.
He's asking, when did the sexting stop?
When did it stop?
Oh, it stopped when it was happening. I mean, like it was a...
He really said that shit. When did you stop sexting other women? I stopped when it was happening. Graham. That is not the nature of the question. What a wild answer. And he's almost like incredulous the way he answers the question too. He's almost like, can you hear it? There's like a hint of, there's like a hint of incredulity in his. Is like, well, I mean, obviously it stopped when it was happening. It's like, well, that's not the question, Graham. He's asking you for a specific moment in time, and he just, anyways, that's one of my favorite Graham Platner moments right there. Imagine saying that like in a trial or something. Like, when did you leave the store? I left the store when I was at the store. It's like, well, yeah, being at the store is a prerequisite for leaving the store. I understand that. Not quite the answer I was going for.